Everybody, real quick, just wanted to welcome you to part two. Just thank everybody that made this possible. Of course, thanks Smokey for joining us, and every show we have him on is always very thought provoking. Matthew Rife at Rife Technology has been a big part of our team here lately. Hope to see more of him here in the very near future, jumping on the show, contributing, things like that. What a phenomenal mind. If you haven't given him a follow or checked out his Royal Rife machines, I encourage you to reach out to Simon and ask him how he thinks. And he'll probably give you a straight up answer, as much as an Englishman can. And also, of course, being libertarian, Chip, Big Lick Roofing, big supporter of the show. We are here at the Big Lick Roofing Studios, obviously, but we haven't been there for so long. It's kind of fallen in the back of my head. I'm excited to get back in the studio here very soon and start recording some more shows. But big thanks to them, and also Spike Cohen. He's always been a big contributor to the show. You Are the Power. They're doing phenomenal things. Something else coming in the near future with some things we're going to talk about after what has happened with Hurricane Helene and being prepared, and we're going to bring him on and some guys and have a big discussion about that. So big thanks to them, and for everybody else out there, for failed musician Josh Grice and the Harwell Grice Band for always providing us the music. And of course, we end a lot of our shows with Colby Helms, Crawford and Power. Support your Appalachian brothers, the ones in the arts, and everybody out there that's doing their thing. We could all use it right now. And for us, you can go to patreon.com/getontap and subscribe for only a dime a day, $3 a month. Very cheap, inexpensive, less than a gallon of gas, half as much as a crappy coffee from Starbucks. And it's going a long way. We're really doing some good things with this. We want to do some things in the future, even more important than just podcasting, so we need a lot of support for that. You can also go to our X account and become a subscriber over there, where you're going to get different types of subscriber-only content, but it's all going to be good, and you're all going to be meshed into the network we're trying to build here. So for everybody out there that does support us, we thank you. Once again, that's patreon.com/getontap, where you could have listened to this entire show in its entirety before it was released to the public. So without further ado, I'll give you the second part to our free state of Appalachia. He's up to him. I'm going to make a case for him, and that's why I need y'all to critically think about this. We'll go the first one. I'm going to say Nashville.
The least
Now,
controversial
Nashville
of the two.
is only a hop, skip, and a jump away from the mountains. You can get mountain views very close out. It's not far from Mount Eagle down 24. You're into Chattanooga. You do need a cultural center that will be able to push your culture outwards. You know, LA is it for out west, New York, Chicago, Midwest, Northeast. And Nashville right now is a cultural center for what used to be the cultural center for good conservative country music. It's turned to garbage. And in these hypotheticals as well, we're taking over the culture in these cities as well. We're just taking the infrastructure they have and kind of using their frame and just twisting it in our own direction. But you need a cultural center. Nashville gives us access to the Midwest. You've got interstate access from Interstate 40, and I can't remember the other one that's in that direction, but you're also not far away from 59, and then everything's sending you south into the Midwest. And like I said, once again, you need some metropolises. You need places for the populations to go. And much like Pittsburgh settles you on the blue-collar aspect, you get Nashville for the cultural aspect, you know. Push our bluegrass music, push good country music. You know, come in here.
Nashville was supposed to be in Roanoke.
How do you mean?
The Grand Ole Opry Country Music wanted to have their headquarters in Roanoke because WDBJ-7 was the biggest, furthest broadcasting system around at the time. And part of the deal was if they brought and built the Grand Ole Opry and the roots of country music to Roanoke, that Channel 7 had to only play country music instead of all the other genres. They refused to sign that deal, so they found the next biggest radio station in Nashville that
TV station.
no, it wasn't even no
The
TV.
WDBJ was radio back in?
Yeah, 'cause
that's
there
right.
weren't no
That's
TVs.
right. That's right.
So they signed that deal and went. So we could have been Nashville,
I'm glad we ain't.
but the reason we're not is the same reason that all your hypotheticals will never happen. First, you got to know the history of how Appalachia got settled.
Yeah.
I embrace hillbilly. I embrace the term hillbilly. I am a fucking hillbilly.
No argument from me.
Come sit down, Brandon. I'll finish.
He's got to stand up. This is
How
a
did
good
the
one.
term hillbilly come about?
Oh, there's different theories.
Well, the English always hated Ireland.
I wouldn't. Hate's a very strong word.
Well, and y'all did strong things there. And
Do you like
all
Cromwell?
all the Irish people called the hill people in Ireland, they call them the hill folk. And when King James decided he'd had enough and went and invaded, got into a big fight with what was the guy from Orange?
William of Orange.
William of Orange. He didn't fight fair. Like, he didn't line up in the field and go at each other. He did guerrilla warfare. And it was all the hill folk out of Irish that did that noise. And then they were despised even more by by England. So that's the boys that migrated here. And they were called the Billy Boys by the English. And they were the hill folk from Ireland. So they just blended that together. So when they get here, all the plantations on the coast are owned by the English plantation owners. And they're having to deal with all these raids from the Indians coming out of the mountains, coming down there, raiding stuff. You know what? All these Scotch-Irish, all these Irish people that are coming to America to free England from being hateful to them, trying to starve them to death and all that. So the English plantation owners over here said, hey, we got a good idea. We're going to make them all settle in the hills.
Mm-hmm.
They'll create a buffer between the Indians and us because they're crazy. They'll keep the Indians from getting to our plantation. So that's how all the Appalachia region was set all the way up and down.
Billy's paying attention.
I'm listening.
and then from that point forward, the Appalachian region was completely left behind by the government because the English in the beginning hated them. Well, most of them were in politics. And so, these boys are crazy. We'll just skip over that part. And so you can
never fight it, go round it.
Yep.
Yeah. You can never, ever convince that, because the Appalachian people will agree to disagree, but when push comes to shove, from New Jersey to Mississippi, that culture, the buffer that was created by the plantation owners to keep the Indians off, stretch all the way up down that mindset hadn't left. It's still there.
If you're a listener and you want to read up a lot more on this, there's a wonderful book that I actually just finished a couple weeks ago called The Southern Colonial Frontier, 1600 to 1760. And it's all about how Appalachia was settled. It's a fantastic book.
How far? All family.
You're pretty close. A lot.
Well done.
Fact checking.
So
yeah,
for
fact checking.
for
right
a
on.
great,
That's
Live
that's
fact
live fact
Yeah,
checking.
yeah, and I-
Something ABC
and I am an
isn't known
independent
for.
journalist.
I
I'd like
tell
to
you.
say. I will add this to it, like especially in our area and in North Carolina, that has the heaviest concentration of Scottish ancestry, and the Scots-Irish, the Ulster Scots. And my wife's great something grandfather, actually, we found that he used to own a 10,000 acre tract of land in Floyd County that was granted to him by the king. And what they would do post the 1745 Jacobite uprising was they would find Scotsmen that were formerly nobles or at least military commanders that
Lairds.
lairds that they had done their penance. They were trustworthy again. They say, we want you to have this chunk of land. You're going to settle 1,000 families on it, and you are going to be at our beck and call if we ever need soldiers to come and fight for us. And they did.
Well, yeah.
And we told them to go fuck themselves eventually, but Kings Mountain was a pain in the ass for Major
Actually,
Fergus.
that's very much on the lines of, and it's very romantic, but the whole series of Outlander
I love that series too.
very
Yeah.
much depicts
Mhm.
that very statement that you made, which is fascinating. I mean, and it's a great period
Mhm.
piece to watch.
Oh yeah.
It has historical reference.
Mhm.
even though it is fantasy.
Diana Glabadon, though, who wrote the books, so I was reading about how her first book that she wrote, where it takes place fully in, Scotland in 1740s. She spent 20 years researching that period of Scottish history to make sure everything was as authentic as she could be.
Oh, yeah, and it's a very authentic storyline, and it does depict exactly what you've said.
Mm-hmm. You had the war of regulation before the American Revolution, where it was people rising up in Appalachia, but they weren't trying to be independent. They just wanted, ironically, more government oversight of corrupt tax officials. That's why it's called the War of Regulation. It's a fantastic little war to look up.
So, I mean, it's all fun and games to the hillbilly.
Well, until people get hurt.
And, then after...
Yeah, me too.
The very first mass migration, compared to the southern border today, was created by the Appalachia people.
Oh, yeah.
Like where I've been doing a bunch of research on it for sure.
I can see the note.
And I'm a history nerd. But,
hey, I love it, man.
When the government said, hey, man, y'all come to these cities, to these factories, and people start pouring in. And, big cities, Detroit and stuff like that were like, hey, man, making rules against the hillbillies.
Yeah.
Because they're setting up hillbilly ghettos.
Yeah.
And, because you're going to make money. But the cities figured out that the money wasn't staying there. Mm-hmm. These boys are coming out of Kentucky, Virginia, out of the mountains, coming up there, factory jobs, working their ass off, sending money back home.
Where does that sound like?
That the Mexican
environment? What is that like?
Yeah. The what?
That's exactly the Mexican immigration or southern.
No, that's exactly how Thomas Sowell's book starts off. Was it white, liberal, black redneck? He has a quote talking about these people getting forced into the cities, coming from the rural areas, taking these jobs, and the entire quote make you think they were talking about a black population and they were talking about hillbillies. I mean, same exact everything.
So
right.
What's your third city?
Well, we have no consensus on Nashville yet. I mean,
I would say adjacent, but not. If we're not including adjacent areas, I wouldn't include Knoxville, but if we are, they can get in.
I mean, we need cities.
I would make the
already
argument,
one metropolis.
Well, so you were bringing up the idea of them being a cultural center because of all their music, but would you want to bring Los Angeles and all of its aids into Appalachia, or would you want to say, hey, Bristol, you are the original music capital. Let's help you restore your former glory.
Yeah, I'm not against changing places like that. I'm just wondering for population reasons, But if you're gonna change your own culture like that, then you probably wouldn't need Nashville. If you wanted to turn Bristol into it, that just brings the mess that much closer to us.
You don't want to reinvent the wheel either.
I think a lot of it though comes back to if we're trying to, this thought wise, we're building ourselves a nation, or even an autonomous economic region or something, that we have dozens of probably hundreds of cities throughout Appalachia that were once powerhouse regions that are, shells of themselves, or, even large towns that they're surviving because 1,400 car washes decided to spring up in Christiansburg.
Well, that makes sense. If you push out Nashville, then some of the other smaller Appalachian cities get a little bigger, and then some of the even smaller, like Bluefield, might get a little bit, a little spark back. I get that. So Nashville's off the table, Chip. You don't like Nashville?
It just seems like Nashville would need Appalachia more than Appalachia would need Nashville.
I like Nashville.
Thank you.
That's a good statement. That's a good statement.
So what is our third most unloved city in this trial?
Charlotte.
It's actually...
Can anybody make a case for it before I do?
Well, he's been thinking about it.
The only argument that I would say is for it, besides being able to claim that the Panthers are our team, our national football team now, which they used to be good in my opinion, they're not anymore, is that if New York City was to disappear tomorrow in a cloud of atomic fire, the financial capital of the world would immediately revert to Charlotte.
Because they already got there.
But do we really want to be that tied into the fucking financial world that, has got us to exactly where we are today?
I think we want to be friendly with them, but we probably, don't want them calling the shots.
Yeah, good statement.
We know It is the NASCAR capital. NASCAR is a very big Appalachian culturally relevant sport. That's why it does have some ties to it. You can't get to Kings Mountain within 20-25
Can you go
minutes
further south?
outside the city. Major interstates running through there, like you said, a banking. And yeah, you really don't want that. Like in your utopia, you don't really want that. But in reality, you do need banking centers and stuff. And that would be a lot of money coming in dispersed out through the region because, mind you, we would be controlling those aspects of it. Like our government, would be controlling the aspects of banking to where
Money now is a fingertip on a keyboard, right? It's a fingertip on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So that
digital ones and zeros.
Yeah.
But in like Nashville too, more than just a culture, it's a transportation hub. You can get to the Midwest from Nashville. Just like Charlotte. Charlotte puts you to the south. It puts us
I'd
to
like
Atlanta,
to go further south.
puts us to the Florida.
I would like to go further south and redress the balance
Y'all didn't smoke way more.
of the 1870s.
There's a whole other argument though involved in this, and that's, let's say that the United States government still exists, and they're saying, all right, Appalachia, you've all had a plebiscite that's legal, a local vote for you that don't understand what that word means, and you've decided to leave. Charlotte, we don't really consider you Appalachian, never have. What is our case for saying you can go? Do you think the U.S. would ever let a city like Charlotte go?
Well, yeah, that just leads into a deeper conversation. I don't think that happens. That's why I'm saying the hypothetical is just that
any of the
we get our
Federal
pick.
Reserve Bank.
We get our pick. These are all laid out on the table.
Do we
We're
want the
having a
Federal
discussion
Reserve
on whether
Bank?
we should.
Exactly.
We have carte blanche, and basically we're just discussing on whether we should allow it or not.
Well, because
for
somebody
what
brought up
reasons.
on Twitter a great example when we were chatting last night about the Radford Arsenal. That's why I said, the U.S. government loves to have its fingers in everyone's pie around the globe and have bases all over the planet. So I said, you can keep Radford. You just lease it from us for 100 years at 6 times the cost of whatever it is, and then eventually you'll phase it out as a facility and, evacuate our country on a helicopter in the middle of the night like you do everywhere else. But I think
Rather poorly.
Yeah.
Well, here's my opinion. If hypothetically the government gets to that position, ain't no different than the USSR. They have no control left.
Okay.
You have certain areas that create their area by, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what happens because, the government don't have nothing.
That's true.
No, everything they've ever had, they've stolen.
It doesn't create any wealth.
That's right.
That is correct.
No, but it takes away a lot.
Sure.
So Charlotte, yay or nay?
I'm saying a no. I'd go further
I like
south.
it's a good place for lawyers and bankers.
I would go further south. We need southern representatives.
Well, we're just for the sake of this argument, we'll just, because like I said, you got to keep within the Appalachian region, and there are no major cities further south. I guess actually Atlanta is within 30 minutes of the mountains.
Chattanooga, I think, is the biggest city in the south of Appalachia.
We'll take
And it's only about 50 miles from
But it's
Atlanta.
like people saying that like Birmingham, like somebody said, technically according to the ARC map, Birmingham is considered an Appalachian city.
Well, Montgomery's only, you can see the mountains from Montgomery.
Right, and I've driven through northern Alabama. I've driven through Alabama going to.
I don't want either
Florida.
of those cities.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I did not like Birmingham, but parts of Alabama, sure. Some parts of Georgia, sure. Their cities, I don't think. I think if the South wanted to become its own country, or if you had, the Sun Coast Republic form up in the South when we're making our own country, they can have their cities. And I don't want anything to do with those cities down there. But a fun reminder when we're talking about the U.S. government is the U.S. government is like a robber that says they've helped the larger economy because a victim needs to replace what was lost. Thus, they have expanded the economy. That's all the U.S. government does.
They're the opposite of the Robin Hood syndrome. Because
Take from us and give to themselves.
Robin Hood distributed the wealth. Unfortunately,
They distribute it if you're Israeli or Ukrainian. Oh, did I say that out loud?
I think you said that out loud. The federal government just doesn't.
They distribute.
Well,
for sure.
yeah, but not to the local populace.
And then you have
it's perverse.
And you have presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates that have never worked in the private sector. They've only been government officials their entire lives. That's all they know. So and they're making all the policies or, wanting to come in and change the economy. How do they, have any
no
grounding? They
credibility.
have no grounding in it.
Can you remember the last Democrat running for president that actually had a job that wasn't government? Biden has never worked outside the government, I don't believe. Kamala's never worked outside of Obama's never worked outside.
It was the first Trump.
Clinton may have been a lawyer for a short time.
It was Trump's first term. He was the first Democrat that's actually worked.
Damn.
Yeah. He is a New York City Democrat.
Yeah, he is.
I've never seen them turn on someone like him though. They edited him out of Home Alone, man. Like how petty can you be?
Did they really?
Yeah, if you watch it online nowadays, he's not in it, but we have the proof, the digital copy.
So the if you would go by the roots of the Democrat Party, yes, he is a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So was Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan was Reagan, John F. Kennedy, and Donald Trump are all one and the same Democrat.
That's
I couldn't put an argument against that.
In all honesty, if you actually look at their every one of them,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
but that is not what the Democrat Party is today. Period. Off.
Oh, not at
There's the point.
Not at all.
The Democratic Party has been taken over by the progressives. It's been a very sly campaign. It's been underhand. And the Democratic Party is now the Marxist Party. And if you don't think that that is the case, you need your fucking head examined.
Now, you think about
the progressivists.
You think about how many tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, of 80-year-old to 100-year-old farmers that the Democrat was a friend of the farmer back in 1956. Yep. You know, and to the day they die.
That's all
they're punching at. They have no clue.
No, the day after they die too.
Right. And the next year. But they absolutely have no clue the platform, because not one thing they really honestly believe is what, Kamala, but they're going to punch that ticket because that was a friend of the farmer when they got their money.
Yeah.
I will still say to my dying day, you cannot be a Democrat and a progressive. You are one or the other. And if you think that voting as a progressive for the Democratic Party, whilst you are a religious soul, you are very, very misguided. And you're one or the other. You are not both. And it's that simple. And that throws a religious card in there. And I'll be the first to do it. I don't give a shit. You cannot be a Democrat and vote Democrat under the current progressive regime that they're under, and then claim to be a Christian. You can't be both, and if you don't like the truth, kiss my ass.
You're
here? The Pope or whatever came out, I guess, and was like, you're going to have to vote for one of the lesser of the two evils.
How dare you say that?
And look,
how can the Pope possibly say?
And Biden's supposedly a Catholic.
He may be the head of the church, but he's not the voice of God.
Absolutely not.
That's right.
Even though he claims to be.
Yeah.
You can't.
Remember, Vatican City's just another European country.
It's his own independent, smallest state in the world.
I'm going to name this episode East Palestine as much as it keeps getting derailed and just a massive, massive, massive fact.
Sorry.
My goodness.
No, Charlotte.
All right, no Charlotte. So basically we're under the consensus. No Charlotte and no Nashville. Pittsburgh is allowed. So Pittsburgh would probably in our region be the biggest city, the biggest metropolis. And you're going to probably have to extend out a little bit in the Ohio
at the
River.
Beginning.
Well, yeah, at the beginning, yes. That's it currently
you give
stands.
regions chances. You don't look how fast cities have grown.
Look how fast they've died. Also.
Oh yeah, fast. Yeah,
didn't take much.
Danville. Yeah. Was one of the biggest cities in
don't shit on their casino. That's the only thing they've got.
Well, they need something.
Danville would be a beautiful city. If they cleaned up the downtown, it's a beautiful river city. It would be great. Which, that's why you need tobacco to come back.
Yeah.
You need, that would help out Danville.
Hey, you know what? You know why I first visited Danville? Oh, hey, it's the last Confederate capital. It might be really interesting to see what kind of history happened there. Oh, got to scrape that fucking thing off the wall. Someone in another country was completely offended by it. Like, I mean, sure, whether or not you agree with, Confederate, statue arguments, whatnot. I know it's contentious right now in Rocky Mountain. It's still fucking history.
It's all history. You can't
wipe
it out.
Yeah. You cannot change it.
I didn't mean to derail this much. I'm just saying,
you need to learn from
that's another thing is just tourism economy. Like, you get rid of the one thing that a town is known for, no one's gonna fucking go to your town. Sorry, I don't mean to keep cursing.
Well, are you? So moving on to the second part, are you now you got to accept part of the Ohio River Valley into the southern Ohio, right there across.
I can hold my nose.
Do we need them? I mean, because you do want the river access. You kind of want to control the entire river. They're on their own over there on the other side with the rest of southern Ohio.
I think
they go all the way up.
Kind of like what Chip just said. I think they need us more than we need them. but I would begrudgingly hold my nose and say that they can join in as adjacents.
There
But
was a lot of hot German
I'll still be
Baptist
cold
girls
and dead in the ground before I'm actually saying that they're Appalachians.
And happy to have alternatives, right?
Yeah.
Let that come south.
In this hypothetical, I'd say that horse trading would, come about, and I've got no problem saying, hey, you can keep all of fucking Mississippi. We'll take our parts of, Ohio that, want to come with us.
Well, I mean, that leads to a bigger discussion on trade, and you do need river ports, and so Mississippi is a big river. So, obviously things like that I think do come from negotiations because we do hold the key to transportation because going through Appalachia is how you connect the Eastern Seaboard to the Midwest. So we will have a lot of leverage right there. But as far as government's concerned, I really like y'all's idea, the one y'all got to talking about a rotating legislator. I think that works for multiple reasons. One, you meet twice a year, maybe we'll say, in each, like every 6 months for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is.
Yeah.
To keep it simple.
The Virginia legislator meets for 2 months, is it?
Something like that.
They make $18,000 a year. They're not full-time politicians.
And you can't get a DUI while you're in session.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Whether you do it twice a year, and split it up, or do it once a year, I think rotating it, number one, it always helps increase a different economy once or twice a year. So you're bringing people into different areas. You're boosting their economy. You got people. But number two, it keeps lobbyists from moving in and sucking the life out of cities.
The way that thank you. The way that I poised it in my head after talking with the gentleman that came up with the rotating legislator ideas, you have a term limit. 4 years, 6 years, 3 years, whatever it is. Because, after a while, hey, I don't know where to fucking send this letter for my taxes. Because let's be honest, unfortunately, there would be taxes involved. Yeah, sorry. That was the collective sigh of every follower of being or being libertarian. So let's say every 4 years, a different state within the greater Appalachian Republic has drawn their turn to host the national government for their 4-year term. I'm not saying stick it in, that state capital and just make their state capital a bigger cesspool for 4 years, but say, hey, let's say the Appalachian part of Virginia, it's their turn to host it. Why don't we have a lottery of our specific larger cities or towns that, meet the criteria that's needed? It says, hey, Radford, you're going to be the national capital for the next 4 years. That opens up funding for them to try and improve their infrastructure, improve their image overall as a city. And not just like, oh, hey, we need to build another courthouse down here, but hey, we need to revitalize ourselves and rebuild, harp on our culture. Because that's the whole thing, is a capital isn't supposed to be where all the lobbyists come and meet and all the terrible lawyers that are in D.C., sorry, Chip, go to. But it's supposed to be the heart and soul of your country. You're supposed to showcase to the world, this is who we are, this is what we can do, this is what made us a great people. I'm not saying that every city or small town in Virginia or Appalachia was great, but they all have a history to them that's important. It's all culturally involved. You're able to tell that story. And then, hey, your term is up for 4 years. It's going to move on to the next state. They're going to pick another, city or town. And that helps just revitalize our local economies.
Does that not become, I'm playing devil's advocate here slightly, does that not become the situation where we now have these Olympic cities and these massive sports stadiums that then degrade into nothing?
Well, so
no, we would need a plan in place of why these builds would justify themselves for future.
Well, so I think the big thing also is, like I was saying earlier, is the idea of the national government isn't to be this giant monolith the U.S. government is today. Sure, you're still going to have to host foreign dignitaries, and you're going to still have to host all the the departments within the government, but
the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the argument is that you have a national government that's small enough that it's not a giant drain on the economy. You don't need to build a massive monolithic courthouse to them. You say, hey, there's a building down here. It has 5 floors of office space that's available right now. It has all these accommodations, has brand new, fiber optic internet to it. Is 20 minutes from, the airport, 10 minutes from a train station. Has parking, all, you come up with a checklist of these are stipulations.
Logistics.
And you use existing infrastructure, not let's build the Volkshall in Berlin of Hitler's Germany to, facilitate for 4 years the next government. The idea also, like Like Spike said during the debate, is I want a government small enough that it doesn't matter who's standing on the stage right now. That's not necessarily going to happen, but smaller government, I think, is the goal.
We have got to stop making our politicians into these
Careers.
Hollywood, just vague.
The idol worship is ridiculous.
Idol worshipping. This is madness.
Like, what is it about
you're
Kamala
a
Harris that ever
politician.
make you want to cheer for? I mean, honestly.
Well, if you worked in the California government, apparently something on her knees. But
Well,
according to the people that work there,
Well, so
does she cackle midway through?
if we're talking about the
Well,
presidents
she
that
does.
we have, like
Those-
Donald Trump wanting to actually cut the government, does that trickle down if he starts to do that? If the Department of
It has
Education
to.
is slashed, then
It
don't
has
others
to.
start waking up locally to be
Exactly.
like, well, we really didn't need
I mean,
that
that was it. That was one of his statements. Was one of the first things I'm going to do is get rid of the Department of Education. I applaud him in making that statement, because isn't that what we're asking? Take it back to state. Like Roe v. Wade. Is that not the same thing we're talking about? About
What's that?
putting states' rights first.
Just because I power listened to a bunch of episodes this past week,
Mm-hmm.
you guys were talking about this a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago or so,
Mhm.
about what would happen if the Department of Education was expanded. And you specifically said what would happen is all the state level organizations would expand to take on that burden that is caused by the gap in federal authority.
Mhm.
So I think in the long term, you'd see a shrinkage, but I think at first you'd see a ballooning of all the state education boards and whatnot.
Right.
So that's the only reason I said I'd call you on it, because
Oh, yeah.
I want to be a smug asshole.
That also,
Sorry.
that also
It's fine.
requires a funding element
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, because now you're going to lose that federal funding,
Mhm.
which has been the carrot and stick that we've always been bitching about.
But you also lose the federal regulations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So
Everything stops looking.
it
like
would
that.
it would
That's what
cost
you want.
way less
Mhm.
to operate if you wasn't having to do this dumb crap
Yep.
to get that funded.
Well, I think
Oh,
it's you that-
absolutely.
I think it's you also that said it, though. If you get rid of the federal aspect of it, you would incentivize local builders to build, construct buildings that they're proud of. Like, hey,
Absolutely.
I built that damn school. I built that post office over there.
Construct buildings that your grandkids are like, their granddaddy
Yeah.
designed that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
You know, places that look like a prison.
And that's what
all
happened.
architect is anymore. Everything's so
they're
bland
rebuilding
and
Christiansburg
boring.
High School right now, or they're redoing it, and it looks like they opened up an IKEA catalog. Like, this one looks good. Let's build exactly that, and it comes in 10 million pieces, and they got to fucking assemble it and hate each other for it.
Which is exactly why the communities are not more proud of their community.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going into a pole
You're
barn
taking away what makes it unique.
that is a government building and going into a pole barn that is this, because all of them are just like square, dude, build something you're proud of.
Hell, I miss when Wendy's had a sunroom, and
Yeah.
now they all look
So
exactly
the Dairy
the
Queens
same.
had the
Yep, they had the
Yeah,
sunroom as
sunroom.
well.
Yeah.
Well, back to what we were talking about, the rotating legislator, rotating capital, whatever, it makes perfectly good sense when you do that, about revitalizing these places, going back in and saying, okay, you will be the capital. What is it about your culture that stands out in this area? And we're going to focus on that. We're going to try and turn it. So when we leave, now your culture is back and you have something to offer people that still want to come in long after we're gone. People, because we do want people to come here from other parts of the country, from other countries. We want them, because, if we were like, no, absolutely not, we'd never know Simon.
Have you ever taken a tour of Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, many a time, different tours.
How much do you remember beyond this federal agency, that federal agency, that federal? And it's just like, sure, some of the architecture is really nice, but at the end of the day, I don't remember which building is which, because I don't care what the Department of Agriculture building or the FBI headquarters or the National Archives look like anymore, because it's just a federal building at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if you have, take Floyd, for example, we used to have a really nice farm hardware store downtown, and now it's Phoenix Hardwoods. Really beautiful pieces in it. Not really helpful to any of the farmers in the community. But when his business goes under because he's selling stools for $900 a pop, I would hope that it, becomes something that is used by the community. If it was just a building that popped out of the ground to become another government agency, no one would ever fucking remember it.
No. And that's part of the culture.
But if you get all the absolute ridiculous amounts of money, waste, regulations out of the way,
Mhm.
you really don't need to promote this town with a revolving legislature, whatever, because they got it. I mean, it's the amount of money that is just ridiculously wasted. You know, the elementary school down here, you know, instead of the candy bars every 6 weeks and this to raise money, you know, quite a few years back, hey, we're going to have an auction one time a year. You know, anybody wants to donate something, come in. There's an auction, legit auction company that comes in, dozens of auction. So, like last year, one night raised $18,000 in one night for the school, for the PTO, for a playground. I went to that elementary school in the 80s. My kid is sliding on the same sliding board I did in 1986. Well, so we raised, I don't know. I mean, we've raised ridiculous. Engineer designs this new playground to the tune of $20,000 of all of our money.
Well, y'all all could have got together and did it for less than $3.
And then all of a sudden,
wait till you hear
Glade
about how
Hill
much
Firehouse
Christiansburg costs.
you know, the elementary school was owned by the county. All of a sudden, they want a tower there. So they erect a tower. The county does in the schoolyard.
The lowest point in Callaway.
Yeah. All right. So
genius.
Government at its finest.
y'all can't have playground equipment in the fall zone of this tower. So $20,000 worth of engineering of the parents' money, rip that shit up and throw it out the window.
Yeah. Well, it's not their money, though.
Yeah. And so PTO, you know, you start over. Well, then they close 2 schools down.
Yeah.
They move playground equipment from one of the schools that closed down to Callaway, which is what we've been raising all these big chunks of money for. So, all right, now where's all that money going? $80,000 sitting in an account that the parents has raised for new equipment. We get new equipment from a school or get equipment.
New team.
And, all right, so now, but if you get all of that stupid crap out of the way, think about the amount of money that entrepreneurs, business owners in each community, the influx of the amount of money that you would put into that stuff.
Well, that would be our, biggest thing for Appalachia region would be, low regulations, almost no regulation, get it done.
What?
Yeah, but you're also caught with the dilemma. Here's the reality check, that your tax revenue from your populace cannot support in rural areas what you're hoping to achieve. Now, that becomes that's a numbers game. So,
what you want to achieve.
Yeah. So,
well, with low regulations, you start encouraging people to want to come in and spend money.
Right, but now look at the situation that we are currently presented with, is that we have to rely on a lot of federal funding to do a lot of the infrastructure stuff that we need to do around here as a rural community that can't be supported by the county community.
Well, so,
but it could be. So if we're Appalachia tomorrow and we can make our own, guidelines and rules, regulations, we could make the Summit View Park very, very attractive to a number of people. You get 2 or 3 places to move into there. They're going to create 200 or 300 jobs. Now 200 or 300 families that amount to maybe 1,000, 2,000 new people are coming around Rocky Mount shopping. And just the commerce alone is going to force places to clean themselves up. It's going to force people to come in and buy that property and clean it up because more and more people are populated. So once we get going, once we have the government set in place and we start talking about the economics, well, for the region, first and foremost, I know it would be a massive to-do from, Maine all the way down to Alabama. So, do we set it up into different regions and then regions set down to counties?
So you want states inside of us?
Obviously, yes, because we're much different than the Smokies, just like the Smokies is different than New Jersey.
I think things that people need to realize also is that when we say, like, Alabama, we're not saying the entire state of Alabama. We're talking about the Appalachian region. So I'm not, let's say
Alabama was added even later to that Appalachia.
Let's say you have the Appalachian region of Alabama, the Appalachian region of Georgia, and maybe even the Appalachian region of South Carolina that come together and say, hey, us plus a small portion of, Eastern Tennessee with Chattanooga are forming, the state of whatever, we'll call it the state of Chattanooga with that's their capital. But like a thing with a rotating legislator, and of course he has stepped out, so he won't be beneficial to this part of the conversation again, is that not only are you revitalizing that area for that 4 years, you're doing it in a way that, in theory, it'll last longer. You're going to bring in businesses that want to do business with the national government in that area. And not even just, like, oh, hey, we're some pact, but the political action committee or whatnot, or some lawyers organization that's trying to get this done. You're going to have companies that come in that are going to be making, souvenirs, flags, touristy items. You want to rebuild the local tourist economy because honestly, that's one of the main things for Appalachia. But then, oh, hey, we have an old, let's say we have an old, furniture making factory here. Incentivize bringing business back to that factory, make local.
I mean, and that's the big thing about
the president of Zimbabwe would, or let's say another country, would absolutely love a locally made Appalachian table from, wonderful Amos Stenton.
There we go. And it's a beauty.
Yeah, I think obviously you have to set up in the different regions. We're different than Shenandoah and different than parts of West Virginia.
Our economies of scale dictate what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a simple fact. So you've got to make the numbers work. But I'm more intrigued to hear about Chip's perspective on how the mechanics of that would work legally. In that hypothetical situation, how would you? Goodness me! I mean, it's mind blowing. The depth of thought required to do this is staggering.
What you probably start with is doing what most lawyers do anyway, which is taking something you already have and, starting from there.
Exactly.
So, we've got our Declaration of Independence and then our Constitution, and I think that gives us a good basis. Maybe we can plug some holes there as we need to and not look at as much as centralization. Oh, I'm good. Thank you. Sort of avoid that federal aspect of it. But that's what lawyers do anyway. And, you're going to have to have a few of those lawyers down the road to do that. But you want some that sort of understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to do.
Well, and really, in the current environment we're in, we're all talking about decentralization. And would that not be a transition into that? Because if we decentralize DC, which I think needs to be done urgently, and get our representatives back to the state in which they are employed to represent, that would be a huge step. I still think our senators being appointed rather than elected would be a huge step. So that would be the slow grind to this situation. But if we're talking about a catastrophic event with a constitutional crisis, a financial collapse, or, God forbid, World War III, which we're on the precipice of,
or all of it at the same time,
that puts it very urgently into play. And I don't think we can cope with that. I mean, that would be the ultimate chaos theory right there. Can you resurrect the phoenix from the fire based on old principles of the founding fathers and the Constitution? I think, yes, you can, with a catastrophic event. But that is the basic framework that which we should work upon. And bearing in mind, decentralizing government is a great thing. So a rotating state legislator may be a good thing over a broad region. Over a smaller region, not the case.
Mm.
So when you're talking about the area of Appalachia, yeah, that would work. But over a smaller region, no, absolutely not.
Mm.
But it's still embracing our founding fathers' vision of the Constitution. And I think that is our step back position. And we build from there. Because whichever way we do it, that's where we're coming back to.
Well, if you have a catastrophic event, let's take World War III, for example. There's a fantastic book by, I can't remember the lady's name right now, unfortunately. It's called Nuclear War Theory, or Scenario, and she has the most up-to-date information on what a second-by-second nuclear attack in response to the United States would be.
Again, hypothetical.
Hypothetical. She uses
a nuclear attack on a certain DC.
So her scenario comes up. It's called a bolt from the blue, just a random attack. In this case, it's North Korea fires a nuclear missile at the United States from a submarine.
That'll be an EMP.
No, an actual nuclear strike.
Oh, I don't think they're capable of doing it.
On West Coast.
Yeah, and specifically, I believe in her book, they target a nuclear power plant on the West Coast of the United States. And hers isn't trying to figure out how plausible that specific workings is. A nuke is coming. Yeah, a missile. We've detected a missile coming. This is how the world essentially ends over the next hour and a half because of U.S. nuclear policy. Something like, I believe it's for every one missile coming out of North Korea, the United States has announced that we would retaliate with 87 missiles. The problem is our missiles that go to hit Korea that are not submarine based have only one place to go, and it is over Russia. So Russia has to take our good faith that we're not firing nuclear missiles at them. Most of the time, they probably won't, is what it's happening. The world ends from one.
But the Iron Dome in Israel actually has the capability of anticipating trajectories of
but
incoming...
the Russians don't have that technology. It's a problem. They have a system that's they claim is as reliable as the U.S. system, which can see. This is a whole side tangent. Look up nuclear war scenario, listeners. Fantastic book. Will make you scared shitless and want to dig a big hole in your ground. But
not really, though.
It will.
If it ends, I want to go.
Well, so you're blessed by being in Appalachia.
We're in the best place possible.
Even if Radford or Roanoke got hit, I know that my place would be fine outside of blast radius. And apparently the wind from fallout patterns goes around my county and would go around lovely little Callaway here. So you fuckers are stuck with me through the end.
Why do you think?
Likewise.
Yeah.
Why do you think I have built houses here for retired Secret Service, retired FBI? Why do you think right here?
So the whole tangent I was going on here is World War III happens. Remember, the United States government is running to us. Mount Weather, the Greenbrier has been reactivated, actually. Raven Rock, all fallout silos or fallout bunkers based in Appalachia.
Well, there's a reason.
Do you think the U.S. government's actually surviving being decapitated and hiding in a bunker?
Not in the middle of West Virginia.
Not the IRS. Yeah, the IRS says that in the event of nuclear war, within 30 days, they will begin collecting taxes once again. Do you think I'm going to fucking pay money to the U.S. government if they get us into a nuclear fucking war? But that's the world that those people live in. At the end of the day, I don't care if, all of California disappears. I'm not letting them come out of their bunker and say, all right, you got to pay to rebuild California.
I seen they had an earthquake the other day. I was hoping it'd just fall them off.
It'd be wonderful.
All right, so talking about creating, whether hypothetically a country, a state of Appalachia, don't matter. To start. By numbers, by data, because numbers don't lie. From Nashville, Charlotte, who identifies as Appalachian?
26.1 million people, according to a 2021 study. So I have my numbers too.
And you can write that you're Appalachian as your ethnic, your race, and it's accepted. Because
there's not a race
in the Human Rights Act 65.
Okay.
Whatever, you can't discriminate race.
Chip will fact check you.
Appalachian origin is listed.
So and falls under like Native American, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they were getting so discriminated against in the factories and stuff. And I think it was 92, 95. I don't know if I got it written down. It was ratified in Congress that as an ethnic origin. So in 2020, 15,000 people on the census identified as Appalachian American.
Okay.
Of those 15,000, 80% didn't even live in the Appalachian region. So first and foremost, and I'm a hillbilly dropout, and I've always, on everything from DMV, identified as Appalachian American.
Okay.
Just because I thought I was being a smart ass.
I think I got a new thing to piss off my employer.
Yeah, right. So you have exact same rights as every other list in the Discrimination Act as being, and their definition of it is being born in the Appalachian region or a descendant of people born in the Appalachian region.
Interesting.
So the first and foremost is, if you think you're an Appalachian, you should register as Appalachian American.
Yeah. Get our numbers up, people.
That's right.
I'm going to drop
start marking other.
Yeah.
Other.
No, you don't mark other. You write it in.
That's what I mean. Mark other than
Yeah,
right
other
there
than
beside
right
it.
there.
Yes, I
There's
do.
always a space
On
to mark
everything.
in beside it. All right. So for what?
That's where you decide what city belongs and what don't. Numbers
I
don't
can
lie.
sort of agree with that, but if let's say you have, let's say all of Seattle tomorrow marks that they're Appalachian American. I'm not going to
They're not
consider
gonna.
Seattle. I know they're not going to, but since we're playing hypotheticals, I think there's still a lot of it goes down to not only being region specific, but your shared cultural identity. It's like a tribal society at the end of the day.
No, I
I
think it's
guess
a
in their
culture.
case specifically, it is a tribal society.
I think it's a culture.
Well,
Like,
yeah, that's what I
it's
mean.
just passed down. I mean, either
Here's-
you have that mindset or you don't.
Here's a good way to determine if you're an Appalachian American. Have you ever just walked up to a random person, they said, "How you doing?" You talk about your medical issues. You're an Appalachian.
Or walk up to a food
15
truck and
people,
talk to a black
15
dude.
people last night telling me all their medical history. I was like, I love this country.
So what is our biggest export? What should be our biggest export? And what is our biggest form of leverage that we have as Appalachian Americans? What makes us like, hell yeah?
We clambered around poor Boer in Iraq forever, or Afghanistan forever and ever, and never run them cave dwellers out. You think they're getting us out of Appalachia? That's what our biggest thing is.
Well, I'm saying for the culturally
Economic
slow, yeah.
Do you want to start, Chip?
No,
Since
go
I've been
right ahead.
okay.
Go right ahead.
I'm pretty certain coal is our current biggest export. It's our biggest industry that we've had. I think it'll continue to be that. The three largest steel manufacturers on the planet: Rheinmetall in Germany, Baowu Steel, which is, I believe, China's, and then Nippon Steel, which is in Japan, all specifically purchase coal from the United States, from the Appalachian region, to make all their steel products. I still think that, you have coal-fired plants around the globe still use Appalachian coal. We don't use it so much locally anymore, but anytime you're near a rail line, you still see 1.5 mile long freight trains heading towards the coast to put coal on a ship, put it in another country. I think that's still going to be our biggest resource, and it should be. I mean, we've got, in Virginia alone, $1 billion, or we had $1 billion a year coal mining industry. The people that you could ask pretty much anybody that is a blue collar family in Appalachia, they'll tell you that the coal company, coal is what funded their family, their education up through till today, until, Obama decided to try and kill it off as much as he has.
But obviously, though, we would need to step in and make sure that those people working the mines are taking care of this go round. I mean, we can't allow the corporations to just overrun their lives. Like, look, you're going to make a lot of money. Come in here. We want the people taken care of. We want the area taken care of as well.
Yeah.
Like these dilapidated freaking old coal towns.
Mm-hmm.
Come in here. We need these things cleaned up.
Well, let's take a further step on that. I know that the cheapest, most effective way to extract coal today is mountaintop removal. I'm about to say something extremely controversial, that I personally think that mountaintop removal should be banned in Appalachia if we became an independent country. Not for the aspect of I don't like it, but the number one industry, growing industry in Appalachia that's not data centers, the tourism economy.
Yeah.
How is that going to look if you come here and there's no mountains?
Yeah.
Because we took the mountain last year because we got coal out of it and had to, go give the Chinese some more. Like, I agree with you, though. You get into a situation where if you're not supporting the actual workers there, but you're just supporting the companies, it's crony capitalism. And you get to a situation where you have Blair Mountain, where, people are rising up and you're having an actual battle with millions of rounds of ammunition being exchanged on both sides because, one side wants to form a union, the other side doesn't want it. And the union's only thing is, hey, we want you to not throw widows out of their house 10 days after their husband died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, these coal towns are never going to come back to where they once were, simply because you don't need the manpower. Machines have made it to where you just don't need the populations. And some of these coal camps, they need to be gone through. The houses that are falling in disrepair need to be taken down and given back to the land.
Yeah.
But some of these other towns that were a little bit more thriving, some that might still
Land
be like
abatement's a big
Grundy's
thing.
and Pocahontas, places like this, move into there and give the coal companies some incentive. Like, look, you're going to make a ton of money. We're going to deregulate you quite a bit, but wherever we deregulate you, whatever you're going to save, a portion of that is going to be a lot needs to go back into revitalizing and keeping the areas clean, first and foremost, keeping our rivers clean, keeping the land clean. But second, I'll find some of these older towns revitalize them up to the point where, okay, the people that do want to come in here and work, now we have some things to do. People are more incentivized to come
It's
to
not
the
a one
area,
company town.
work hand in hand with them. Like, okay, you're going to help revitalize them. People are going to want to come here and spend money. Now you own a percentage of the buildings here,
Yeah.
and they're going to make money because now we're going to turn tourism into the thing. So come here and ride your four-wheelers. We're going to have a little music venue in town where we always got a big name coming to where people are going to travel from out of town to come listen to.
Absolutely.
All these towns get a little bit bigger when you kind of, thread it out and spread it out and crack these deals. And
Economies of scale.
and as far as we're concerned, though, I mean, I don't know if I would want to use coal as our main energy source. I would prefer just to export that and take that money and invest
I don't
in
think
the
for
nuclear
ourselves as an energy source.
and hydroelectric. Because hydroelectric, it's clean, and you're also building lakes that are going to bring more resort areas, more cabin areas, more tourism.
The problem with
more
that, though, is
jobs.
the people that are living alongside the banks of the river now become, oh, hey, you got to move out of your land. They made a movie about it with Mel Gibson back in the 80s.
Well,
The river.
the Army Corps already done that for us.
Yeah.
I mean, all the power from Smith Mountain Lake is shipped to like Ohio,
Yeah.
Indiana. It ain't even.
I'd like to see
we
where
can
the surplus,
utilize what we got.
I'd like to see where the Claytor Lake Dam surplus energy goes to be honest.
Well, yeah, we haven't, but I'm saying when you're gonna have to invest, because eventually that stuff gets old and in disrepair. You're gonna have to focus on ways for the future, and I think hydroelectric and nuclear. Nuclear because it's going to be clean. It's going to give us more than we need, and we can focus our resources on something else.
Well,
really,
fusion is not that far off in the scope of our life, our lifespan.
I
It really
think
is.
energy independence, at least net energy independence, if not net energy exporter, it should be our primary goal when talking about
Well,
it
I mean,
for ourselves.
we were fairly net independent
well, look,
when Trump left office.
well, that's not, but I mean, Appalachia specifically, we were our own country, instead of saying, hey, we're getting power from a coal plant down.
Well,
in
we have the
Richmond.
biggest uranium deposit,
Yeah, down in
Pennsylvania County.
Pennsylvania County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't
that
want
exists.
it. They won't allow them.
Oh, hell no, they won't let them touch it.
Because the people down in Norfolk Way say we don't want potential for our water being contaminated.
We're sitting on the biggest uranium deposit found.
shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Oh,
Billy,
it won't
you're
be
a
long.
college person. Come on, man.
I'll send you my.
Yeah, I mean,
when
you're married to a doctor, for goodness sake.
Well, that says more about her than it does me.
There's a coal-fired plant right in Giles County.
Yeah.
They're working on trying to figure out what to do with it right now.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to tear it down, and people are saying turn it into a peaker plant. Or, you could fire it back up in the meantime.
Yeah.
Coal has to go, 20 miles down the road? Process it another 20 miles down the track, and is that the great existing...
But I think so much has been said about solar power that's just absolute horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
Solar power is a residential game changer.
Yeah.
It is not a massive grid issue.
I don't necessarily think solar in Appalachia would become the primary provider of power.
No, not at all. But
There's areas of the
individually,
country that
residentially,
individually,
it works.
Yeah.
yes.
And you can get solar powered shingles from Big Lick Roofing.
There you
There
go.
you go.
And that's legit.
And that's just the start of it.
Mhm.
So that whole
I got a
technology.
solar powered generator. I'm still yet to
Oh,
hook up. But
I've got,
Patriot.
I have one.
EcoFlow.
Yeah, no, I have a solar generator as well.
I'm just hooking up one of my chest freezers to it first off to see how it runs.
It will run.
Yeah.
So long as it's a modified sine wave.
So
Like
what should be the biggest export? Should coal continue to be? Because I think
Of course.
if we deregulate
course.
as much as we can, there's no reason to think we can't bring back manufacturing in the form of textiles and furniture, because those are industries we can bring back here that we don't necessarily have to rely on
I still
nature.
Summit View should be attracting pharmaceutical companies, as much as I despise them, and bringing back pharmaceutical manufacturing to this country. We rely way too much on all foreign antibiotics, you name it. India. We are absolutely reliant, as much as we are on chip.
Well, we got
Sorry,
all the
not
chip we
chip.
need right here. I mean,
But I'm talking about chip
We do
manufacturing.
rely on him quite
It's
a bit for
completely
legal
based.
issues.
It's completely based in Taiwan. Taiwan is the biggest producer of chips globally, and now we're caught in this bullshit battle about is it part of mainland China? Well, unfortunately, yeah, I'm afraid it is, folks. Get used to it.
It is just the
So why
Chiang Kai-shek
aren't
government.
we taking chip manufacturing away from Taiwan? Sorry, Taiwan. Hate to upset the apple cart, but these business parks that they're setting up, they're on a pipe and a fucking dream, when they're doing nothing to bring back that manufacturing base.
Well, with our deregulations in the great Republic of Appalachia, we entice those people to come back here.
Well, so
hey, look at all those empty warehouses we have down in Carolina. You're not going to be able to bring back the manufacturing, but you can make them facilities, turn that area into the next Silicon Valley, put all your big servers and computers in those big giant buildings and keep them cool. And you're doing it very inexpensively.
Well, that's what's happening with a lot of the old decommissioned coal mines, is it becoming data centers.
Yeah.
Naturally
cool,
so they have to spend a lot less on their HVAC systems. But here's a question that I guess has appeared in my head, talking about, old industries that have left, gone overseas. In this scenario, how does NAFTA stand for us?
NAFTA?
North American Free Trade Agreement. Think of how much, industry left the United States and went to Mexico because it was cheaper down there and they weren't paying.
That's what fucked Appalachia completely.
Yeah.
Right. Sure, I'm saying
100%.
Especially this region, because we were so tied into
tied
into coal, and we were so tied into textiles and furniture.
Was gone overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I mean, Henry, Danville,
for North Carolina,
in
Burlington.
10-year span.
Yeah.
I think Kamala said it correctly, by the stroke of a pen.
That's right.
I can make your life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, textiles, furniture, and tobacco from Winston-Salem all the way up here to, Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
I think here's where we'll get into another lively discussion of the debate. Medium income for Appalachia overall is $56,780. These are 2021 before Build Back Better really hit, so it's probably a lot more now. The U.S. median income was $69,000 a year. Obviously, our medium income is less. The poverty rate average in Appalachia is 14.5% back in 2021. Central Appalachia, where we're considered, was 22%. How would we tackle that issue, though? Because overnight you could say, all right, we're bringing this back, but how is that really going to locally affect, what, kind of going back to what we were saying when they stepped outside, Billy, is how do you keep these corporations from coming in and taking advantage of ourselves, though?
To take advantage of us?
How do you prevent them from taking advantage of us? Because, as you see it, hey, what was it? They wanted a solar car, or no, an electric car credit of $9,000. They came out with it. What did all the electric car companies do? Oh, hey, your car is now $25,000 plus $9,000 for this random fee we found all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question that I don't think anybody can ask about anything that's set in the motion is how do you keep the corruption out of it? And
there's a way, actually, and this is a very perverse way of thinking about
guillotine.
it. Well, the guillotine is one way. But having come from the Caribbean, where I live, I don't know, 11, 12 years, you would, if you were an outsider, a non-island guy looking to establish a business, you would be required by the Labour Board to have a native hold a 51% share. Now, I have very mixed emotions about that because
that's the only way
for all the obvious reasons.
You get in. That's the only way you could do it.
But that does keep stuff local. I'm not saying that is the solution by any stretch, because it has its own problems. But there would be a way of saying, right, if you're going to establish a business here, number one, you're going to have corporate offices here. Number two, you're going to require, residential populations to be employees, and your shareholders and whoever is running that business needs to have a significant share in it. Now,
we'd certainly have to, in our laws or constitution, or whatever the case may be, we'd have to specifically address, the need to be able to close ridiculous loopholes. I think that's what really gets.
Well, it's the corporate loopholes, and they've been designed very specifically to do exactly what we're proposing to achieve.
Specialist become the next secretary.
But if you don't have the regulation, if you don't have all the stupid regulations, there's so much more. one-on-one interactions that a whole lot of that is negate, because you make deals with each other instead of having to
Look how many
go through all the dumb stuff.
Look how many Texas plates we had on trucks whilst that pipeline was being built, right?
Well, yeah, the
Think
negotiations
about that.
between the community and the corporation, not the community and the corporation with centralized government in Richmond or D.C. making those decisions as well. They come in here and we decide, okay, within this 30-mile radius, this is who this affects the most. Does it make sense for us? Is it going to pollute? Is it going to mess our river? Is it going to mess our water tables? Yes or no? No? Okay. Well, let's move forward and see, okay, do you have the access you need? What do we need to do to accommodate you? What are you going to do long-term for us? Basically, we're not going to go in here and tax you to death. We want you to come here and do your product, but in lieu of not taxing you to death, you need to keep the money here as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, maybe something like a corporate bond being held. So, like, for example, when we built our park in Kirstensburg, the local, from my understanding, the contractor had to keep a bond with us. That way, if they decided to cut and run at some point, they were still legally liable for, I think it was $1 million or $2 million, $32 million park. So to them it was pennies. I think they ended up losing money on the whole process of building it, but
it needs
you
to
prevent
be
a company like
exactly.
You prevent like BlackRock from coming in and saying, "Oh, hey, we're opening up a bottled water plant in Rocky Mount right next to the ice company."
You're never overcoming BlackRock. That is an organization that needs to be broken apart.
But why would the U.S. government get rid of its most favorable servant?
But if you get rid of regulations, becomes irrelevant. I mean, because
the amount of financial power, though, I think prevents them from becoming irrelevant because
the carrot and stick. It's the same story, and that's what you got to overcome.
But I mean, you got to build a bridge on a road, and I mean, there's literally a regulation for everything. You have to spray paint the ends of the rebar, and somebody has to inspect. You think about the amount of people's yearly salaries that are getting paid and through government regulation over one bridge that takes 5 years and $400 million, and that bridge could be built with $15 million, the same exact identical bridge.
The county spent $7 million on Glade Hill volunteer fire department building.
Well, this is why you have people out here and your right man can't understand why they're holding up Kamala Harris signs. But when you understand that the government props up so many unnecessary jobs and these people have gotten so comfortable that if they lose those jobs, they're not going to survive in the private sector because they are too far gone into this system that they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep it alive.
The county allowed a $5 million budget for that firehouse build.
This stupid firehouse was probably the ultimate conversation that led to this podcast. And me and Amos.
And they overshot by $2 million plus. So there's the depth of depravity that we have to overcome.
But it's all government regulation.
Absolutely. Well, no, it's even worse than that. It's lack of accountability at the local level. So now we've got a $7 million volunteer fire department in Glade Hill that gets how many calls per year, and our county is we're very proud of that. The hell you should be absolutely appalled by this.
Could do that thing for $500,000.
But to get a government grant for X amount of dollars and a government grant for X amount of dollars, you have to
the carrot and
you have to have this installed in your fire. You have to have this. Which that's what At the end of the day, local taxpayers are paying for the firehouse so that the firehouse can get federal money.
Yep.
And
it's a game.
It just reiterates what we've been saying the whole day. The federal government is entirely too big.
Yes.
It's the problem. You have to beg, basically begging them for the scraps of these grants.
Well, taxing you to incentivize what's the word when you're just trying to keep yourself alive, basically
Self-preservation.
Yeah, they're basically taxing you on self-preservation. It's like, well, you have to have this for safety reasons. Well, duh, I was going to build it for safety reasons anyway because I don't want to die when I'm coming here to try and save somebody's life. They're going to do it the right way. They don't need you to come in and be the middleman and say, well, this is the right way you have to do it because this is the money you have to spend to do it. Like, we're going to build it the right way. We don't need a middleman in D.C. coming in and charging us to tell us we need to spend more money at his buddy's freaking lumber yard. You know what I mean? That's what it all boils down to.
This is where we're caught, actually, and this has immediate relevance to the town of Rocky Mount. They're now employing someone to make and research the tax credits, the grants, and so forth that we can get from federal government. Now we're employing someone, we're paying someone a salary to make that happen. Right now, I'm not saying that isn't a worthwhile job. It probably is, because Bill Stanley is not sending a dime to Southwest Virginia. Okay, this is our senator, right? So he's obviously kissing the bootstraps up there, but no money is coming this direction, which is why now the town of Rocky Mount is hiring a person. Now, rightly or wrongly, I don't necessarily think that was a good decision. However, if you've got to employ someone to make sure that you can get the grants available to you because your representative in the state is not sending it to Southwest Virginia, then fair enough. I absolutely support that, because that's the only person that is going to take advantage of those federal funds for this region, because our state representative hasn't sent a damn dime down here. So Bill Stanley, I'm afraid, is not on my Christmas card list. And that was me being very polite about it. But it's forced the hand of local government to say, well, we'll actually employ someone and we can make sure that we will get these federal grants. But it's still someone else's tax dollar. To say it's tax-free for us is a great thing. Oh, it's great. It doesn't cost our citizens and residents of this county any of their tax revenue. But it's costing someone, right? So don't think that this is free money. It isn't. But we're having to play that game, because our representative isn't sending the money down here that he's been sent to represent us for. So, this is a vicious circle. We have to cut that circle.
Well, one way to avoid that, if we're talking about our Republic of Appalachia, what would be in our best interest, given our culture, given our how we work and how we have managed to get along for so long. We have that advantage, as a mountain people. Craziness. What's the best way to move forward as far as something along the lines as taxation? Because for me, I think when it comes to the roads, pay for what you use. If you're somebody that's going to, and you can do that by checking your odometer at the end of the year and just paying, because somebody who doesn't ever drive on the roads shouldn't be paying. And the same thing for schools or any other thing. But what do you do? Just a flat 10, 15% sales tax on everybody? Do you do a little bit of income tax? I mean, you obviously want to help
the U.S. government. Never in my life, has been standing next to me doing my job. They can fuck off with their income tax. That's
how we want to educate our kids, how we want to make sure our kids are raised. I mean, we want to incentivize the most possible way for women to stay home and raise their own children.
I tell you how we do it.
But for everybody, that's not a reality. We still want them to get a good education.
Absolutely. This is a concept that people they're not prepared to get behind because it's so revolutionary, is we need to step away from the fact that property tax, right, means property foreclosure, or what's the word I'm looking for? That where you can be seized. Right, property tax is related to property seizure. If you don't pay your property tax, your property can be seized. That's bollocks. That's not freehold. That's not. And the law of freehold property stems from the English real estate law about what freehold really means. We do not have freehold here because if you don't pay your tax, the government can take your property from you.
They want to eliminate all that. Once you buy it, it's yours.
Well, but you have to replace the property tax with something that would be a residential tax in the county, not a property tax. It shares and puts the load on everyone.
Like service tax. Like, hey,
well,
you have to pay for your services somehow.
Because you own a property, now you're being penalised for being successful. That's not the American way. And it certainly isn't freehold property law, I can tell you that much.
Maybe we get 2 votes over people that rent their houses. They get 1 vote, we get 2.
Well, no. There's another issue there entirely about who should and shouldn't be able to vote, whether you're a net tax provider or a net tax recipient. But as far as property tax concerned, it's the biggest load of bollocks on the planet, because you should not, as a freehold property owner, be subject to forfeiture of your property if you don't pay property tax. That is not freehold property law. Full stop. So let's get away from that. Let's share the property tax, quite frankly, is an abomination. And if we don't address that from the get-go and share our tax liabilities across the board with residents of the county, we're doing everyone a disfavour, particularly the people that have succeeded and are property owners.
So you just tax everybody on their earnings?
No,
That's it?
no, you don't. You have a flat level tax as a resident of the county that supersedes property tax. It takes it over completely, and you can no longer forfeit your property from not paying your tax. That's obscene.
Well, I'm saying, where do you get your revenue? Where is your revenue coming from?
Your revenue comes from your resident tax.
Sales tax?
No.
Income tax?
It's the same thing as property tax, but as a resident, we know.
Isn't that like a Democrat just called something different?
Well, in his version, they can't take away your land.
They can't take your land.
Well, a nursing home can take your land before the government gets their hands on it. So.
You just got to be smart about it. You just
I
got to be
will.
smart about it. So what I'm saying is, we know the revenue that we collect from property tax. It's X. We know our budget. We have to approve it. Thank the Lord for Virginia, because you've got to have a approved budget for spending. So let's embrace that. But you know your revenue from property tax. You know the number of citizens you have. Now, you can have your exclusions. If you're in college, you don't pay that tax. Let's say if you're beyond 65, you don't pay that tax. Maybe if you're a current serving U.S. military, you don't pay that tax.
More
Whatever
than
it may
3
be.
kids.
There's the exclusions. But as a resident, this is a tax rate you pay
That means
to
one
live in
more
the
for you,
county.
right?
And it doesn't put any lien on your property. There's no way you should have a lien put on your property, or the ability of the state, county, or federal government can take something that you own in entirety. There's no way that should happen. So I'm saying, make a resident tax that is equivalent to the revenue that you would receive from your property.
Well, as an
tax.
anarchist, I don't want any taxes at all, but I also understand if you're starting from scratch.
Well, then
right,
you ain't gonna have roads.
Well, I'm saying you have to. Well, no, you just pay for what you use. If you know.
So you're never going to drive past the end of your driveway?
No, I'll pay for what I use. If I drive to Charleston and back, then I pay
but you can't
$6
administer
or
that.
something.
You can't
Because then
administer
you
that.
get into
So
the
it's
but
flat rate.
a
odometers,
small
vehicles.
tax off the rip. Everything at the end of the day, though, should have a sunset clause in it. Every law written, I say, in this Appalachian region should have a sunset clause to where after 10 to 15 years it goes away, you have to re-vote on it because times change.
Every
Things like
new
that
law, you
change.
lose 4. You got to remove 4.
But I mean,
Well, just update stuff.
But a
Yeah.
small tax from the rip. I mean, I hate to use the term necessary evil, but however you get it, whatever way you do get it, though, I kind of think maybe at the least, you at least get to write in where that money goes. Does it go to the police? Does it go to the fire? Does it go to the schools? But then I got to
Well, you
thinking,
can't
though,
do
that,
that.
but then they would start doing lobbyists and stuff. You'd have police people spending
Right.
all their money
Well, at
just
the moment,
lobbying you to.
not 60% of local sheriff's office budgets come from the federal government anyway.
Yeah.
But
So
see,
there's the carrot and stick.
problem
But-
is
and-
everything-
And they force that local sheriff's department to do all this stuff to
Mhm.
get that money
yeah,
that the local taxpayers pay for.
Google what a flock hit camera is, and then drive around.
But you
Franklin County
eliminate-
and take a look for them.
you eliminate
Like the
that
tag
once you
reader
put
camera?
emphasis
Kind of.
on
It
self-protection,
cloud.
put emphasis on the Second Amendment. You say, look, our job here is not to police you. It is
Oddly
to make
enough,
sure
in
everything
Christiansburg,
is
it's outside of
is on the up and
Lowe's
up.
and the KFC.
So we don't need 50
Really odd
deputies. We need 5 people
Mhm.
to come investigate to make sure if that guy was on your land, if you killed him justly or not. If he posed a threat to you or not, and tell everybody in your community, hey, look, this is how things are. If you're going around messing with somebody else, you're messing with their property, then you're subject to being shot. And if we find out that it's legitimate, then they're not going to go to jail, and that would cut most of this crap
The
out
problem is
right
though,
away. And all you would need was deputies to show up and investigate the things that need to be investigated. You go after the real criminals, the people who force themselves on women, the people who are giving kids drugs, people who are murdering in vain,
Here's the problem though. Like I think Chip can attest to this, and call me out if I'm wrong on it.
with.
But let's say you are, let's say you're Officer Riddle or Deputy Riddle.
Trooper Riddle would
Well, no,
would ease everybody into it.
Let's say you're local officer or deputy. You go to investigate a crime and you have to shoot somebody. Does your department investigate that, or does the state police have to come and investigate it?
I think maybe the closest town over in one direction, flip a coin, north, south,
Well,
east,
no, I'm
or
saying
west.
because right now, so we had a shooting in Kirchensburg back in June. I know one of the officers was involved in it, right on 460 bypass, and state police has been the ones investigating it. And it was a clear-cut case of, officer acted in self-defense for himself. The officer only just came back off of admin leave last week. I get how long an investigation takes. I've been there. I've literally done not a homicide investigation, but I've been there. I've been in law enforcement. But we're pulling a guy off of a small department for months because state police is dragging their fucking balls across the road.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a clear-cut case.
Yeah, a guy drawing his gun on a cop.
Yeah, but it don't matter.
Click up.
Well, you want to make sure you get it right, but you want to make sure it's swift. And make
But
sure
I'm saying the problem is,
All right,
cops don't get to do their job anymore because they're taking in this
Hell
federal
no.
money, and then they need money from the state to have a state detective come down there and investigate their case.
But it's just wait.
It's an accountability thing. And I
But you have
completely
fewer of those
understand that, but-
issues when
yeah.
people are carrying themselves and they'll be able to take care of themselves. You know what I mean? When you're encouraging that kind of thing.
We get into the minutiae.
We will solve these
the
problems
discussion.
tonight.
But you're never going to solve them all in one hit. But the reality is, our legal system is horribly screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I think
the justice system, all of it.
Our bureaucracy of local government is so dictated to by state government that is so dictated to by federal government
to get $1
with the carrot and stick principle, that we need to reclaim our financial independence and have our counties financially responsible and in control of their finances. And then it goes a step up to state.
Mhm.
Now, the federal government should not be involved in any of this.
Right.
Well, that is what's created this mess.
Well, of course it has.
It's,
And so has the imbalance of having senators being elected as opposed to being appointed.
Well, it's because
This
they
whole
hit that interstate commerce clause, and
the whole
they branch their entire ideology off of it.
the whole basis of balance of power and checks and balances has been thrown off by that one issue, which is having
federal dollars.
a senator elected.
Mhm.
That absolutely threw
Yeah.
the balance of power and the checks and balances.
That
And
was
now
the-
we're caught in a federal system, thanks to the balance of power and checks and balances, where we are now under the regime of executive power. This is madness.
It was also
It's madness.
I don't know. I know there's 4 case law cases. I don't remember which ones they are off the top of my head, but they're from the 60s. They deal a lot of with voting power and voting rights, and basically it comes down to the one person, one vote stuff, which is how you had the balancing originally of cities and rural areas being balanced out, but now it's increasingly.
Well, electoral college was exactly what
now,
that was
now
designed
it's increasingly it's we're ruled over by city states that have no idea what we're like out here, but they'll happily come out, visit, and tell us what we're doing wrong.
So, the dumbest, smartest person I know, you know who I'm talking about,
for. I know exactly who you're talking about.
in a conversation last night, said something that's about as real as I've ever heard. He said the way to give power to all the localities in every state, to bring power back to the states, and not just to Northern Virginia, but to all of Virginia. And every state should have electoral colleges just like the nation. That keeps Northern Virginia from setting the mark.
Yeah, but actually, doesn't making the senator an appointed position as opposed to an elected position, when you consider the crossover of governors to senators, you have to compromise. And that's what government is all about.
But
So
if you
I
had
hear
a state electoral college that appointed a senator to represent them to the national government, so that
you're doing the same thing. That's exactly the same thing as the governor who has been elected, right, has the power of appointment to the senator.
Mm-hmm.
But, and here's the big but, those crossovers of terms of service overlap. And when they overlap, you've got a conflict, potentially, where a senator that's been appointed from the previous governor and supported politically with that stance now has to work with a governor that is of an opposing political stance. Now you have to compromise. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Is exactly the key to solving the political impasse that we now have with executive power. It's clear as day in my mind. I know I'm on the money on this, and I'm not backing down.
No, you're absolutely correct, because otherwise, with the system that we currently have, when was the last time anybody's voice in Southwest Virginia was heard in the state
Not
Senate
once.
or the Senate election?
And Bill Stanley, I hope you're listening.
And if you're not, you can write to us at the Appalachian Podcast. Tells you to get yourself.
Yeah, but where has money from Bill Stanley come down to Southwest Virginia?
It'd be news to me.
Where? I haven't seen it.
Maybe there's a house on Smith
I thought the
Mountain Lake.
schools were getting some.
$1 late and a day short.
I mean, he said it's a meeting
that promise was made, but it was in the conflicts of county budget, state budget, and federal budget. None of them coincide on the same day to make an educated decision about where the money is. So you're in conflict. It's a crock of shit. It's absolutely designed to.
That's why the federal government should have nothing to do with none of that. Let the states take care of each other.
Exactly.
Every state takes care of itself. We would be so much better off.
Bravo.
I mean, all the federal government, all they need to do is run around the ocean and check for floating cocaine and shit off of Florida and make sure we don't get invaded. I mean, we don't need their bullshit.
Get back to the founding fathers and the original.
You pay federal taxes for them to create guidelines for your small.
Federal taxes are bullshit.
But you pay that so that they can create guidelines to send it back to your community
with a perpetual state of war. That's a great way of doing business.
It's bullshit.
Of course it is.
Well, they don't have our best interests in mind. They never have, and they never will. That's why this hypothetical for
the state of Israel,
region of Appalachia is just so important and so interesting, and I enjoy sitting around and having it. Obviously, this is a very long conversation. We're going to get to all of it today, but I think we did get to some good points. I think when it's all said and done, you look at places like Pittsburgh and you have to think, well, we do need metropolises. We do need cities to be able to handle the overflow. We need places for cultural centers. We want some of our smaller cities to get a little bigger, some of our more dilapidated cities to get a little bit of a boost. And, decide on some of these areas, just cut the fat and say, look, there's not housing coming back here. Let's take down what is there. Let's get these double wides and get off the side of the mountain. And let's let the land get back to itself and focus on tourism. I think that's what our next show is probably going to be.
Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tourism, and a way to bring back agriculture is by the deregulations, and focus on the family and people wanting to pass farms down. That's a whole nother talk in itself.
Here's another subject matter just for another show. This is for another show. But
we said we'll solve it all tonight, so come on, play it on us.
Well, no. I mean, we've got all night, but I'm not going to do this. This is another show, but it's a teaser. RFKJ, I think, would be a great representative for the health department.
Mm-hmm.
In so much as we have seen the USDA fail epically in Northern Virginia, right, with 84 citations where basically people died through lack of enforcing 84 said citations in a what is it, Boar's Head plant up in Northern Virginia?
I caught listeria from that same damn
Right.
plant, and I needed 2 whole bags of fluid, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
It was atrocious. Don't
Oh,
ever
yeah.
get it.
So now you've got 84 citations
Mhm.
that the USDA was aware of
For 2 years.
for 2 years and did fuck all with it. They allowed citizens to get poisoned by this. The USDA credibility in USDA stamped food is now going to come into question. How do we rebound from that? And I will throw this out there. I would say that if we had state regulated abattoirs,
Mhm.
that would be a way, as opposed to a USDA stamp, take everything back to state and let's start being able to produce our own food for our own community away from a USDA stamped environment, because the USDA, quite frankly, has absolutely failed.
VDAX already has, agricultural and livestock divisions.
Right. So
They have the capacity there to
this
push into it.
This is a subject matter I want to
Yeah.
approach differently and in another.
Backs up to regulation, one word.
But it's regulation. But getting it back to state is how we are going to proceed and be prolific in how that we can provide sustainable food for our local community that is a
How
damn
we can
sight-
sell, not how we can provide.
how we can sell it.
Sell without all the ridiculousness.
Yeah, without the stupidity.
I will say one more thing about RFK Jr. Going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, my wife informed me that today he came out against vaccines, saying, do your own research, and to keep in mind that the medical industry would not have business if children were not sick.
Bravo. Well said,
he's always
RFKJ. You know,
I'm just saying,
Skeptical.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do your own research.
I-
I will find that website
I've
link for you
done-
tonight. And
I've
send-
done significant research on the matter, and that will be another show entirely. But trust me, do not trust medical profession when it comes to vaccines.
Mhm.
And that's big pharma, not necessarily the medical profession.
Well,
I-
I always trust
practice.
real medical
Yeah.
professions.
Yeah, be intelligent and do your own research, and we'll go ahead and probably stop it here. I got long enough. We're not going to do an after show with this, but I got it long enough to split it up into 2. That way we've got ourselves covered for a couple of weeks and leaves ourselves open to continue the conversation down on the line. I mean, I think we got a good idea tonight of what the region should look like, and maybe next time we'll get a little bit more about how we govern and how we make it a realistic option to be able to deregulate as much as we can, have as fewer taxes as we possibly can, avoid the decentralization, maybe focus on a few other things, that maybe we didn't consider this time that we could start thinking about production. I mean, not just what's traditionally here, but what, we might want to entice to come here, things that would help us out and at the same time help them out and help the world out, things that are out there like it. And I had something else in mind just now that's kind of completely
Surprise.
And another thing. Come on, lay it on us, brother.
well, now it's gosh, now I done kind of.
Oh, there it goes. I see it going out the window.
Well, I'm just saying we have the ability, just like this show, we have the ability to entice people to want to come get on the show and have this conversation, have a lot of fun. We can do that on a larger scale. We entice people to come here to spend their money and benefit everybody. Right now, we need to be able to predict
We
the
gotta
future
have
to a
money to
little bit degree.
spend.
We need to be able to see the writing on the wall and start thinking of ways that we can continue moving forward. While everybody else is stuck in neutral right now, we really have to start thinking of ways to get ahead of the curve.
I don't think everybody's stuck in neutral.
Not everybody, but there's a lot of
Everybody's
people that are.
confused.
Yeah, that's exactly
Everybody is confused
by
right now.
design.
I think regardless of what happens in November, though, people need to not get, apathetical about it all, because people are going to be fired up in the next month or so. And then the election's going to happen, and come what may, either Donald Trump's going to win or Kamala Harris is going to steal the election again. And
Well, we're caught in the
regardless
trap.
of what happens, you can't.
The big trap is between then and January.
What's what I'm saying?
Yes.
People
That-
need
that-
to,
that
whoever
trans-
wins, stay
That
involved, keep
transfer of
asking
power,
questions.
whichever way it goes, is going to be
Well,
Will it require the
ugly
military
as
again?
Not.
I feel like that everyone was sitting right here is looking at this election season,
This
what's
is-
going on right now in America. that our parents could have never imagined, or our never even thought that this would be happening.
They fought 2 world wars to avoid what is happening now, and it's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bro, wasn't it Patton who said at the end of World War II that he
Fought
said,
the
"I
wrong
fear that
enemy."
we've defeated the wrong enemy or fought the wrong enemy or something," because he saw communism coming from a mile away, and now we're kind of staring.
I believe it was the man on the mantle over there, Winston Churchill himself, who said that communism should be strangled in its cradle.
1949.
Patton also is the one that said, "I don't know what them hillbillies are, but them boys don't know when to give up."
There you go.
Well, that leads us up for the next
That's
show
a great way
because
to
I do
end it.
want to, jump on how we govern and what our military looks like and how we defend ourselves and how we open ourselves up, because we do need access to ports. We do need for that trade to come in. I mean, our manufacturing just right down there in South Carolina in the foothills of Appalachia. That's something that we should take into account. We should think about different ways. And honestly, there's so many towns around here that need revitalized, and you just throw a little music venue in there, a couple restaurants. Like, tourism is something we really, really need to focus on, and then enticing people to move to the area without screwing up our politics. We have to find ways to keep the Californication out. Whether it be maybe you got to live here 10 or 15
Northern
years before you can vote.
Northern Californians are just like us.
The
True,
Humboldt County
true.
folk.
So real quick before we get off here, since I'm splitting this up into two, I just
You're
want
gonna
to
pop out another baby here in the next day or two.
Yeah. By the time you hear this, I'll have
Jesus
a little
Christ.
LLB here. When you're doing as good as, can you argue that I'm not doing a good job? I mean, you look at my first two, and if I'm doing this good of a job, shouldn't I keep going? You don't. Why do you want to throw a
I'll
monkey
let
wrench?
Terry
I ain't throwing a monkey ring. Yeah,
That's it.
What?
what he said.
What
We'll
do you
let
say?
Tara
Terry
answer that
answer, yeah.
question for you.
Well, now,
Doc-
granted, she might probably be the biggest
Dr.
reason
Riddle might end up strangling you in your sleep.
while our children are doing very good. It
I
might
did
be.
say something about more than 3 children earlier. Did y'all pick that up?
I hope all was good, and I'm sure it will be.
Absolutely.
I'm
Right.
It's going to
sure.
be a wonderful Tuesday for
That's
2
right.
reasons, Billy. You're fathering another child, and I'm becoming an American.
I'm
yeah, brother.
I'm praying for a Tuesday now.
Oh, yeah.
So the last child, I get a text message at 5 o'clock in the morning. Hey, will you come over to the house for a minute? 5:30 in the morning. Like 8:30 in the morning, I'm like, Tina, let's go to Billy's. Is it all right with you if I give my child your name? Now this go around, Simon's gonna become a citizen. I'm gonna call Tara. I'm gonna tell her to do whatever exercises she needs because she's on our side, Billy. I don't give a damn what you say.
If this is this going to come out before Tuesday?
No,
Yeah,
on
this
Tuesday.
will. This will come out
Well, no,
Wednesday.
I was going to say, after you listen to this, make sure you mag them a couple times into trash cans for both Billy and Simon in celebration in true Appalachian fashion.
But if the baby's not here by Tuesday, Tara's getting induced on Tuesday.
No,
yeah?
she's getting induced Tuesday morning at like 11 o'clock.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
Set up.
Morning,
so
that's
beautiful.
midday.
Set up.
Yes, I
I already had my
what is it?
second lunch by then.
Yeah, it could. Last time she got induced, it took 12, 13 hours. She makes it to midnight, then
Everything's going to go smoothly, brother.
yeah. Oh, I'm convinced of it. I think we're gonna have a good, healthy baby. I think this summer's
Me
been
too.
it's worked out exactly how we need it to work out, and it's going to be a next step for everybody, for us, and obviously the show will probably be a little bit different. I'll have a whole different frame of mindset, and hopefully when everybody comes back, we'll have a little bit more of a pinpoint on getting these cameras in here and stuff, because the next month and a half is the biggest time for podcasts. I really want to take advantage of it. Whether we have cameras or not, the show is going to be
And
great.
farm work's
There
slow,
are some
too.
people I'm going to talk to y'all with off air real quick before I leave that I would like to kind of reach out to and get on the show before the election starts. I think would be really good guests to get. And yeah, so thank everybody for sticking around and making all this possible. I really enjoy our conversations with Smokey, and I like getting him down here. Hopefully we can get him down here more often, because his inputs
Try to, man.
is second to none. And you're much closer now. Well, we are all much closer now. So.
He'll make you think.
Well, absolutely. So, real quick before we get off here, thanks to everybody, Big Lick Roofing and Rife Technologies for all their support, Rocky Mountain Burger Company and Rocky Mountain Smokehouse, Beth Preston at Beth Preston Photography for all the wonderful pictures she does for us, and she'll be getting our newborns here very, very soon. And as always, if you're a subscriber, patreon.com/getontap. You're going to hear this entire episode in its entirety before I split it up for the public and everybody else. So if you're listening to this, you'll get the couple of minutes ahead of time with Amos's German Baptist story before we got going, and you'll get the entire show all the way through. And we really appreciate you. Share the show with your friends, text messages, word of mouth is the best way to get out there, and give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to, Spotify, Apple, 5 stars. Say Amos sounds like he has big feet, or say I hate Simon, whatever it is, just 5 stars. It helps us in the algorithm.
Always the I hate Simon.
It's a language thing. It's my accent.
But for everybody out there, like I said, we've mentioned this before in the last couple of shows. Get in now on the subscriber page and be active, because we want to know who you are. We want to be able to invite you up. We had a couple of subscribers we invited up here today to come sit on the couch and listen, and they weren't able to make it. But yeah, for any subscribers out there, that's what you get. You get a chance to come up here and listen to these talks, maybe jump on the mic and talk, maybe not, but you get some good food, networking, and we make that available. So patreon.com/getontap. Only $10 a day minimum. You can give more. You can also sign up and just give the minimum, Amos, Simon.
And the number one
podcast in the German Baptist community. So Amos needs to be our surrogate there and start collecting money around town, and then just becoming a subscriber for a few $100s a month, because there's obviously passing the money on to him, building these businesses and promoting. Absolutely. So before we get off here, Chip, where can they find you at?
Twitter at Being Libertarian, on Instagram Being a Libertarian, and Facebook Being Libertarian Media is the main page. 20 or any other regional Being Libertarian pages, we're on there.
Can you name the other 12? Because I'm finding more and more. I see BL Voices, BL Asia, BL Britain, BL 2.0 Vintage Me.
I'm a heavy subscriber.
He does well.
Space Force. I mean, there's so many, and they're all great. It's I don't know how he keeps up with all of them. He does a phenomenal job. He really does.
You can find me in the hayfield, or maybe in the barn.
Or at one of the bathhouses off the side of the interstate sometimes.
Only if they're $99.99. That's my cap.
Smokey, where can they find you at?
On Twitter or X at Appalachistani. On Instagram, I believe it's State of Appalachia. And as of 6 hours ago, whenever I got here, I now have a website that we're building, thestateofappalachia.com, where we'll be selling our merchandise like stickers, flags when we have them in stock, and just kind of adding in anything that we have that's related to stuff that I'm doing, stuff that Billy and Simon and Amos and Chip are doing.
And the flags are badass.
When I make the post of the flags, do you see a surge in like orders? Do people usually jump on there? Because it seems like a lot of people are interested, but I don't know if they actually go through with it or not.
The past 2 orders that we've done, because of how we do it, we have to do a group order in order to get cheaper flags for all of us that still seem high quality. I think the last 2 times we got like between 30 and 40 flag orders, so we get a good amount every time. I think what we're going to start doing is I'm going to order them and just collect them in bulk and then do a release. I'll probably do another one next month or so as, Christmas comes up. Great holiday gift, and they're not too terribly expensive. And they'll last you at least, 1 whole year minimum in all types of weather in Appalachia, which means everywhere else that you're listening to this podcast, they'll last for like 5 years.
Yeah.
That's about
right. That's about right.
Yeah,
I love the stickers.
The amount of people that come to the wood shop that'll look at the flag and be like,
yeah.
Then I have this whole story.
I got some more stickers that are coming out. I'm going to give you these 3 also to give out to guests or something like that.
People love it. People love the flag. They love the concept every time. Where can I get that from? Where can I get that from? So,
we're working on getting a t-shirt press. We're going to do comfort color material shirts and start coming out with more merchandise.
Like on body press?
I don't for extra.
Thank you, Amos. Thank you, Amos.
But we're just trying to come out with more things to help other people in Appalachia show pride for the region. And not only that, but people that don't live here that are Appalachian adjacent, like all those people in Ohio, say that they support us in Appalachia.
Identify as an Appalachian.
Yeah. I'll even make a shirt that
if
says
you
I'm
are
Ohio,
Appalachian.
and pretend that I'm Appalachian or something. But thank you.
Well, perfect. No problem. And yeah, and you can catch us on Facebook and Instagram at the Appalachian Podcast, on X at Get On Tap. Been collaborating with Smokey and Chip both quite a bit on Instagram. You'll see us doing this leading up to our next show we do with them. We continue this conversation on. Do a lot of that with memes and things. Same thing on X. You see us going back and forth over there quite a bit. That's where you can jump in on the conversation. Given Simon and Chip, and I'm reluctantly going to give Amos keys to the podcast page here in the next week or so, and they're on there commenting now and passing out and they're on there now commenting
I'm sorry.
and posting things. Well, we want to get more engaged. We want to get engaged on Facebook. Because what we're building over here with the network, and we need more and more people.
God, y'all got to teach me how to do Twitter. I don't know how to do.
We're gonna have a class here soon.
It took me like 10 minutes to make that one message, and I wasn't even sure if it went right.
The first video cast that you do has got to be you sitting down, and be like, "This is how the internet works."
Yeah, Simon and
This
Amos
is a
sitting at a
web
table.
domain.
Can you put anything that I post through a filter via Chip as our legal representative? I'm just thinking that may be a very shrewd move on my
That'd be
part.
a good class. That's probably the class we need.
Well, that's what we'll do when we get the cameras set up in here. Chip and I'll come in and do a demonstration with y'all dressed as Lincoln and Cornwallis.
But I think I could
trying to
like
explain to
Tweeter
you-
better than I don't like Face Guide. Like I think Tweeter makes more sense to me, but it don't make sense to me.
Can you say it again?
It's easy once you.
Tweeter.
It's easy. We'll give you a class. We'll film it. It'll be one of our first videos down there at the bottom. We'll have our little big lick roof
snorted on
it. All right. So, oh my God. Once again,
Here we go.
patreon.com/getontap. One-time donation at Venmo or Cash App at Get On Tap if you want to help out this week while we're having a baby. We could use the extra couple of dollars. And other than that, thank y'all gentlemen so much for coming up here. I love these conversations. I enjoy y'all's time. You know, Smokey's been somebody who met us through this whole process, and he can vouch for us, and he can explain to y'all how much of a good time it is to come up here. He's a good reference, and we hope more people follow suit. We're looking forward to having a very interesting and entertaining winter, and having a lot of fun up here in this cabin. So, if everybody stuck around, Chip, Simon, Smokey, Hezekiah, we thank y'all, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
I'm gonna get to the barn and milk a cows.
We drive trucks, we plow fields, we work from sun up until it goes back down again. We raise hell on Friday nights. It becomes Sunday morning, you can find us at the Church of Christ. It may sound like a simple life, but the living sure is fine. Yeah, where I come from, we drank moonshine. If it can be broken, it can be fixed. We come from busted knuckles and we know how to use a wrench. We raise our kids, we teach them wrong from right. Yeah, and you can bet your ass that they'll never back down from a fight. It may sound like a simple life, but the living sure is fine. Yeah, where I come from, we drank moonshine. Country music, we turn it way up high, and I can sing every word to a country boy can survive. We like our beer, we drink it ice cold, and the stuff we smoke, well, it's gotta be hand rolled. It may sound like a simple life, but it keeps me feeling high. Yeah, where I come from, we drank moonshine.